Doma Sports Talk worldwide with some news from the world of boxing. So y'all know what time it is. You ain't in a rush to get concussed. Now, let's talk a little something, something. We got Canelo fighting this weekend against your boy Demetrius Bivol, right? And it's going down, right? But we're going to talk about Demetrius Andrade, right? You know, the man can't get fights. We know about it. He's my number 2 pound for pound behind Terrence Crawford. Speaking of pound for pound, you make your own damn list. I told you before, because listen, you know, the pound for pound list right now from Ring Magazine is incredible to me. You know, you guys check it out, how it is, and I've told you. Ring Magazine, for me, because I've seen what they're up to. And, you know, when Ring Magazine, you know, they call themselves the Boxing Bible. But when you are caught with Golden Boy Promotions calling Al Heyman a nigga, right, and Black Hitler, and you never had to really show any remorse, give an apology. You know, it's typical things when you do something with black people. You don't never have to really apologize because there's no outrage. But that's the boxing Bible. And them being caught saying nigga and calling Al Heyman, who's just a promoter, and not really even a promoter, he's just an advisor, right? And all of his fighters, he has probably a 98% approval rating from his fighters, right? And the 2%, that was just Vanis Matarosen, who was unhappy, right, and left Al Heyman. But about a year and a half later said, please let me back. If I had an opportunity to go back to Al Heyman, I would. So it's actually a 100% approval rating, but we're just gonna give him 98. That sounds good, right? So this guy who came in trying to give free boxings and not pay-per-views on every damn thing that's out there, you know, he was rebuked and they were upset, you know, Golden Boy Promotions and Bob Arum and the likes, and they wanted to sue him. Now they all want to work with him, right? But when you call someone nigga, you know, officially, and you're caught, then there has to be an apology. You know, kind of similar to a black boxer named Devin Haney, who said he won't never lose to a white fighter. We're going to see soon against Kambosos. But him saying that, he had to give an apology just by saying, I ain't letting no white boy beat me, which he was serious about. But he gave an apology. He didn't call the white boy out of his name, though, like nigga, right? They didn't have to make an apology. And they're still called the Boxing Bible. And their pound for pound list is always indicative of how they really feel. There's way too many fighters that should be on that pound for pound list. That's why I said make your own. But in the meantime, go look at Doma's pound for pound list that he made about 6 months ago. It's still pretty, you know, up to date. There's probably 2 omissions or changes I would probably make. But at the bottom line is Demetrius Andrade is still number 2 because of the people who won't fight him, right? Because the other recognized number 1, Canelo Alvarez, he won't. And that's points. When people avoid someone officially, that's points for the one that is being avoided. And I think everyone should think this way. We can't be giving people pound for pound points and call them the very best, and we know that they won't fight people in their same division who are champions. Now, pound for pound number 1 shouldn't have that, like Terrence Crawford doesn't. Terrence Crawford doesn't have anyone at 135 who was saying they could beat him, whether that was a champion. He didn't have anyone at 140 pounds that could say they can beat him and is a champion and call him out of his name. And at 147 pounds, his 3rd division, there's really no one really going after him saying they can beat him that are champions. He has a problem getting Errol Spence, and Errol Spence is the baddest one there. So that's what a pound for pound champion is. The number 1 needs to look like. Can't be people in his divisions, right? That we're saying, hey, we're designating him. But anyway, back to the point. Demetrius Andrade and, you know, the popular promoter Eddie Hearn, they have to part ways now because Eddie Hearn has basically made it clear that he can't get this guy fights. He can't get Demetrius Andrade fights. Who's the champion? And all Demetrius Andrade it keeps doing is fighting his mandatories. And his mandatories, people say that they're not anything, right? But he has to fight his mandatories because all of the major guys won't fight him. He has to move up now and probably fight the guy that Canelo doesn't want to fight in David Benavidez. But let's check in on Eddie Hearn and see what he says, because Eddie Hearn is doing a lot of talking this week, trying to promote Canelo's fight with Demetrius Bivol, saying that Canelo is probably one of the greatest of all time, which I know he doesn't believe, but those are things he has to say. He's a promoter. right? Because greatest of all time don't have these people. Greatest of all time wouldn't have a Demetrius Andrade or a Charlo that's been following them for 2 or 3 weight divisions, being champions. And then, like, for example, Eddie Hearn said this week, Jamal Charlo hasn't fought anybody to deserve a Canelo fight, right? You know what I'm saying? I was his mandatory, which means mandatories don't have to deserve nothing. We are mandatories. And there, what happened? A franchise title was born to get Canelo out of that mandatory, right? Now he's a champion, right? Jamal Charlo at 160. He was a champion at 154, right? So if you're a champion at 2 weight divisions, I don't think you can ask a 2 weight division champion if he's fought anybody and he's worthy to fight another fighter, right? Because I think Jamal Charlo has done more than Yildirim, right? I think so. And any other, Billy Joe Saunders, Callum Plant, really Callum Smith too. But I'm going to give Callum Smith a pass because any fighter that is in a Super 6 tournament is getting props from me because that's a tournament to find out who's the best at a certain weight division. Just like Josh Taylor, just like Alexander Usyk, those guys, just like Andre Ward. When you're in those kind of tournaments, you're getting props from me because those tournaments means you go to a quarterfinal, semifinal, and a final, and you are fighting everybody that's hard in your division, right? Of course, Josh Taylor, there were 2 people that weren't at that Super 6 tournament or WBSS tournament, which was Jose Ramirez and your boy, I forget his name right now, the brother from Dallas. They weren't there, but too bad for them, right? Josh Taylor is the very best 140-pounder, and can't nobody deny that, even though he had a close fight against Jack Catterall, but I'm going to call it a close fight. I don't think Catterall won the fight. He made it close. But anyway, let's check in on Eddie Hearn, what he had to say. Eddie Hearn admits he can't deliver for Demetrius Andrade, so they've agreed to part ways. So we go down to what they asked. He was asked by someone on Demetrius Andrade's attempts to land a fight with Canelo. And check what he said. I think the only time I wasn't involved with Canelo Alvarez then, so I don't know the conversations. I had a brief conversation with Golden Boy about 2 years ago, maybe more, about Demetrius Andrade fighting Canelo at middleweight, and Saul wanted to move up to 168 pounds. So I think if his chosen weight class was 160 and he was staying there, I believe he would have fought Demetrius Andrade, right? Now, mind you, he's saying that Canelo wanted to move to 168 at that particular time, right? But Demetrius Andrade, they was at 160. Canelo could have fought Andrade at 160 for undisputed, right? But who did he fight? He fought your boy Sergey Kovalev, not at 168, guys, at 175, right? So he wasn't trying to go at 168. That's not the truth right there. See, it sounds cool, but he can't put Canelo under the bus right now because he's Canelo's promoter, right? But to give Canelo that little excuse saying he wanted to move up to 168, well, sometimes you don't. If you wanted to get undisputed, you have 1 fight left to get undisputed at middleweight division. Why would you want to move up to the division that just got made up 25 years ago at 168, who nobody cares about, and try to go for undisputed there and have 3 fights instead of fighting 1 fight with Demetrius Andrade, the guy that has to leave Eddie Hearn and everyone else because he can't get fights? But we'll keep going. Let's see what else, on why it's so hard for Andrade to get marquee fights. This is what your boy Eddie Hearn has to say. He's very good, he's very awkward, and he doesn't generate the interest that can pay these guys the money they need for the risk involved with fighting Demetrius Andrade. He's injured now. He's out of the Parker fight, so I think he has to reschedule that fight, try to become mandatory at 168. If Canelo's at 168, I think he fights him, right? So, does that sound right to you? He's very good and he's very awkward, and he doesn't generate the interest, right? Well, 40 million should have been, right? Undisputed should have generated the interest. Me personally, undisputed fights trump every other damn thing out there. People say, belts are not important and stuff, but when you got all four of them, you undisputed, and there's only 6 people that's done that in history, damn it, you know that's the bomb. So if you can get 40 million and undisputed at a glamour division, stop telling me that Canelo didn't want to do that. Because all of a sudden, because let's make sure this is clear though. Before Canelo didn't have to fight Andrade for undisputed, he was saying he wanted to be undisputed at 160. When Andrade and Charlo, and both Charlos were still at 154. As soon as they got up there and became champions, he didn't really want it at 160, so he moves up to 168 because first of all, I could fight Callum Smith. WBC would give me the belt for free because I'm fighting Callum Smith for the WBA, and they just gave me the WBC for free, and I didn't have to fight Benavidez, and then I could fight 2 feather-fisted guys for the other one, Billy Joe Saunders and Caleb Platt. This is what's going on, guys. So at the end of the day, Demetrius Andrade is my number 2 pound for pound, right? And no matter what promoter he's gone to. Remember back at 154 pounds, he was WBO champion. Canelo was his mandatory, and he couldn't get fights. So they stripped him of the title because no one would fight him, right? After he was stripped and they gave it to Leon Smith. Who stepped in all of a sudden and wanted to fight Leon Smith? Canelo Alvarez, the very best fighter on the planet. It's a piece of doo-doo if you think that Canelo Alvarez is number 1 pound for pound. So guys, go check the pound for pound list from Ring Magazine and then go check my pound for pound. And you tell me which one is really right. Mine's is 6 months old. Doma Sports Talk Worldwide. And I'm up out of here, y'all.